I think it's no surprise to anyone, but we have a housing crisis across Canada.
You hear about it in the news.
Canada's housing crisis is nearing its boiling point.
Rental markets are overheating in Canada's most expensive cities.
But this is what it looks like. More and more Canadians losing their housing because of spikes in rent and evictions.
It's not just in urban centers like Toronto, it's in suburban areas, it's in rural areas. We know that the private market is not providing housing to everyone, so we need alternate solutions.
Now, communities across the country are uniting around a radical idea, one that upends the current system of land ownership and who benefits from it. Neighborhood groups are quietly buying up properties, and they're doing it through the formation of community land trusts. Toronto's Kensington Market, a vibrant neighborhood known for its fresh food, vintage stores, and eclectic personalities. It's a place with deep immigrant roots. For Jewish, Portuguese, and Chinese newcomers, the market has been a lifeline and a safe haven. But today, rising rents, gentrification, and Airbnb ghost hotels threaten the fabric of this historic district.
We have seen our own neighbors defend each other from increasingly violent and scary evictions.
Chi Tam is the outgoing executive director of the Kensington Market Community Land Trust. After years of fighting eviction attempts, a group of concerned residents came together and posed a question.
Could we as a community lead the developments and evolution of this neighborhood? We didn't want to see other people profit from our own neighborhood.
That frustration is being felt across the country and has sparked a land trust renaissance, says Joshua Barnt. He leads Toronto's Parkdale Neighbourhood Land Trust, which formed in 2014.
At that time, nobody knew what a community land trust was in Toronto. Now, everyone's talking about it.
From Vancouver to Whitehorse, Muskoka to Halifax, there are now more than 40 community land trusts in Canadian cities and towns. And most started up just within the last decade.
Honestly, we hear every week from communities across Ontario and Canada who reach out to us and they say, we want to do this too.
Like co-op housing, community land trusts are nonprofit organizations that use a shared equity model. But unlike co-ops, where each household has a share of the building, land trusts acquire and develop land on behalf of a whole community. Residents who live or work in the area can be members and maintain control through democratic processes like voting and committees. A land trust can own anything important to the community. Often that's affordable housing, but it could also be commercial businesses or green space. Once a community land trust owns a parcel of land, it remains in community hands forever.
That's going to transform the relationship of our communities to land. Because if we can trust that we're not going to get kicked out, we're not going to get rent-evicted, we're not going to economically displaced, then we can actually be secure members of our communities.
Where does the money come from to buy these properties?
Usually the first place that we go looking for money is from our community. We get donations from residents who want to support the work we do. We also get donations from foundations who believe in our mission. When we build housing in particular, we definitely need government investment.
Through these fundraising efforts, the Parkdale Neighbourhood Land Trust and its charitable arm have built an impressive housing portfolio worth approximately $85 million. It now oversees 205 rental units across 85 properties in Toronto's West End.
We're a community where 90% of residents are renters. And we were concerned that if those buildings sold to predatory landlords or maybe investor groups, they would aggressively increase those rents and push out lower income households.
That exact situation is playing out across the country, meaning more people are ending up on the streets. Canada is losing affordable housing units faster than new ones are being built. To close that gap, more than 300,000 rental units need to be created over the next 3 years.
We need to increase the supply of housing. It's that simple.
Joshua agrees, but says the current system, where governments incentivize the private market to build affordable units, can't be the only solution.
There's a lot of government investment right now going into subsidizing developers to make a portion of their units affordable. What we're seeing generally is that those subsidies are provided and then the developer only needs to make the units affordable for 10, 15, 20 years. And we know that we actually need affordable housing forever.
Parkdale's success is inspiring a new generation of community land trusts. The Kensington Collective purchased this building in 2021 for $6 million, just as longtime tenants and shop owners were facing eviction. Sydney Creighton lives in one of the 12 residential units with DiMaggio, her pet python.
Hi, DiMaggio. What's happening, baby snake? Huh? I'm not a typical grandma. I went to my first mosh pit down here in the market.
And how old were you then?
Oh, in my late 40s. And they're throwing me overhead going, don't drop grandma, don't drop grandma. It was fabulous.
Sydney has been coming to Kensington Market since she was 14 years old. Back then, you could buy live chickens here and get bags of fruits and vegetables for a couple of dollars.
The sights, sounds, and smells of Toronto's ethnic market in the heart of the city's cosmopolitan downtown district add up to a colorful visitor attraction.
The market has always drawn crowds of outsiders looking to experience its artistic and bohemian atmosphere. That vibe is nearly gone, along with affordable rents. Now, chic restaurants, craft breweries, and weed dispensaries have moved in.
It's really changed a lot in the last 20 years, but especially in the last 5. You would think this part of town might be cheaper to live in. It's not. So it's a miracle I got this studio.
What has it been like for you to live here knowing that you're not going to get served an eviction notice, you're not going to get an email one day that your rent's been raised X amount?
Let me tell you what it was like the first 2 months here. I talked to my pets, okay? And every night I would look at my cat and go, oh my God, I hope the real tenant doesn't come home and put us out. Like, I could not believe this was mine.
Sydney pays just $1,000 a month for her studio in Kensington.
This unit used to go for 2.5 times as much as I'm paying for it currently.
Wow.
It's like a dream come true for me.
G and the Kensington Market Land Trust now have their sights set on 2 Victorians that have come up for sale.
Naturally, they're expensive, $4 million for the pair. Why these 2 houses?
Because they're classic, because they could potentially stop a broader development play way later down the road.
Residents fear these 2 buildings could be purchased as part of a land assembly to eventually build a larger property, like a condo.
How would that impact the fabric of the market?
Oh, it would be so depressing to really see that come about. You would then only have a strip of Augusta left as the main commercial strip. So you could argue that Kensington Market wouldn't truly exist anymore.
The Land Trust has 3 weeks to come up with the money. Chi is exploring all her options: government programs, foundations, impact investors, and bank loans. And that's on top of the normal real estate checklist, like building inspections.
It has to be a good project and it has to be a responsible project because it's not just your money. It's like we're trying to steward these properties on behalf of the whole community.
They're not the only group up against developers with deep pockets. On the outskirts of Halifax, a small Nova Scotia community is fighting to preserve its cultural heritage as bulldozers and new neighbors move in.
The development started off small, but now they're larger. Some of them are hundreds of units.
Change is coming to Upper Hammonds Plains. In this tight-knit but sparsely populated Nova Scotia community, Even the fog can't hide the signs of construction along the main road.
This is another development.
Curtis Wiley drives around to see where new developments are happening. Until recently, it was the only way he and others who call this place home were able to find out what's being built.
In Upper Hammonds Plains, it's literally been the wild, wild west of development.
This area is part of Halifax Regional Municipality, which is scrambling to build more housing. It has the second lowest vacancy rate in the country at 1%, and rents have skyrocketed. Upper Hammonds Plains, with its abundance of land, has become a hotbed for new housing developments. That's what led Curtis to start a community land trust in 2022.
You know, we want there to be development in Upper Hammonds Plains, but we need the development to happen on our terms. And so that's why we're taking control. My family has been a part of this community since its inception, so for over 200 years.
Curtis is a sixth-generation African Nova Scotian. His ancestors were Black refugees who escaped slavery by fighting with the British in the War of 1812 and were settled on the hilly outskirts of Halifax.
They put us in the woods, so they use the woods as a way to make a living. And if you didn't own the mill, most of our parents or grandparents worked in the mills.
Gina Jones runs the Upper Hammonds Plains Development Association out of the local community center.
The community didn't even actually get a name till 130 years after it was here. It was just known as the Negro Settlement. Yeah. I'm watching.
Despite being part of Nova Scotia's largest municipality, she says this area has long been overlooked, and the lack of services and infrastructure is endemic.
The fight has been ever since we've been here. We fought and we still continue to fight. Nobody's given us explanation of why that we had to fight for things that other people got, and one of them was the water.
In the mid-1970s, the province expropriated the vast Pockwalk Lake watershed to provide clean drinking water to residents further south.
They took the water into Halifax, but we didn't get water in the community until 1999. And our water wasn't good. We had to take it to Supreme Court to get them to give the residents water when the water is coming from a lake in the community. I'm gonna leave it up to you to say why.
What did the loss of the lake mean for you, for the community?
It was big. Now the kids still to this day in the community don't have any place to go, like a beach, to go swimming. They're all growing up, you know what, just hanging around, walking up and down the roads.
Roads that resident Sabrina Allison says are no longer safe since the new developments began.
But now, people are speeding. They are flying by so fast, they don't know if a child is on the road.
She fought to lower the speed limit and has even put up her own sign, but it hasn't had much of an impact.
People moving into the community don't care. Come out and meet us. Don't drive through the community and act as though you don't see us.
Road safety is what first galvanized people around the idea of a community land trust.
The land will stay within the Black community. It will start to build Black wealth.
Over the past 5 years, developers have rushed to Upper Hammonds Plains because of the area's unique general use zoning, where apartment buildings and large-scale businesses could be built without any community input.
There was no signage as to who was building. You just saw these trucks showing up. They're building.
Several Black families sold off their land to developers and left.
And that's when the community members say, you know, this is enough. We're losing our community.
And there's a history.
There's a history.
There's a history of displacement of African Nova Scotian communities.
Communities, yeah.
Do you feel like history is repeating itself here?
It pops up. The development it's growing too fast. We're not gated. We just want to protect what our ancestors built.
The first thing the Land Trust did, along with other community groups, was to amend the zoning. No longer can developers build without consulting residents. Curtis has now asked the province of Nova Scotia to transfer 5 parcels of Crown land, once owned by Black refugees, to the Trust.
That would be an act of reparation, right? Because we're gonna be getting those assets, hopefully at no cost. These are the lands that I'm talking about here, where we're at right now. This left side is the Crown parcel that fronts down onto the lake. So we want to eventually have, beach access.
His long-term vision is to build affordable housing here for African Nova Scotians, something the community desperately needs.
We have all of this development, which is private development, happening on the other side. Right here is going to be this juxtaposition of development and community-led ownership and community-led development, and quite literally on opposite sides of the road.
If they're successful, he hopes other Black communities in Nova Scotia will follow in their footsteps.
It's about preservation, right? There's been a lot of loss of land in our communities, so there's always this feeling that it could be gone at any time. So a community land trust could bring a sense of peace, right? And that we don't have to worry about that threat.
Back in Toronto, the threat of redevelopment still looms over Kensington Market. The Trust wasn't able to come up with the money to purchase and renovate the 2 properties. It is, after all, the biggest hurdle land trusts face.
It's just this massive anxiety of not knowing who is going to buy it, not knowing if they are going to develop a condo on it, not knowing if our neighbors are going to be evicted, not knowing if those 2 legacy businesses will be able to stay in place. But this exact scenario is going to come up again. It's going to come up again on another corner of Kensington Market. It requires many, many failures for each one of our successes to come through, and we just have to keep on pushing.
The Parkdale Neighbourhood Land Trust has also had its fair share of setbacks. Ultimately, Joshua Barnt admits, its successes have been tied to government's willingness to help fund acquisitions.
What happens if the funding dries up?
But we know that there's going to be moments where government is interested in funding housing and other moments when they step back. The important thing to remember is that it's not going to disappear because we're going to own that land and we can continue to make sure it's affordable permanently. And the Community Land Trust does that.
Beyond the goal of creating affordable housing, land trusts have given people a voice and the potential to shape the future of their neighborhoods.
I think one of the biggest pieces of this is that it has brought us all together. It has given us a shared vision for the future. The trust is just really a name and an organization on paper, but it's really mobilized us.
It's very empowering when we can say, we can actually do something about this. We don't have to wait for the private sector to solve this. We can do it ourselves.